I would be willing to say it's the greatest upset in boxing history.
That's the referee. He's my referee for punch.
A popular myth suggests Mike Tyson's downfall was purely the result of his chaotic lifestyle outside the ring. But the reality inside the Tokyo Dome on February 11, 1990, was a technical collapse. Tyson had built his career on the peekaboo style, a disciplined defensive system of constant head movement and lateral shifts taught by Cus D'Amato. However, by the time he arrived in Japan to face James "Buster" Douglas, Tyson had abandoned these mechanics.
The death of Cus D'Amato, good left hook to the body, don't forget. And Buster has that history of to get found, and that's why Don King has brought...
He had fired his longtime trainer, Kevin Rooney, replacing him with Aaron Snowell and Jay Bright, who lacked the authority to enforce defensive drills. During his Tokyo training camp, Tyson was even dropped in a sparring session by Greg Page, a signal of declining reflexes that the public largely ignored. The man who entered the ring that night was a flat-footed slugger, not the defensive savant who had unified the division.
Movement so that he could easily counter with either hand. Tyson pole-weaved a jab-cross combination, regions to weave under another 1-2.
The betting world viewed this fight as such a mismatch that the Mirage in Las Vegas was the only major sports book to even offer odds, listing Douglas as a 42-1 underdog. Douglas entered the ring carrying the weight of a personal tragedy. His mother, Lula Pearl, had died just 23 days prior to the bout. While commentators expected a first-round knockout, Douglas utilized his 12-inch reach advantage to establish a stiff, repetitive left jab. He didn't retreat like previous opponents. Instead, he exploited Tyson's lack of head movement, landing 30 jabs in the first round alone.
So there will be no knockout by young Mike Tyson fight, though there was a first round.
Tyson's strategy was non-existent, consisting of single, looping hooks that Douglas easily parried or stepped away from, forcing the champion into a frustrating pursuit he wasn't conditioned for. By the middle rounds, the technical disparity became a physical crisis for the champion. Tyson's left eye was swelling shut, a direct result of Douglas's precision with the 1-2 combination. The incompetence of Tyson's new corner was laid bare when it was discovered they had failed to bring an end swell, a standard metal tool used to reduce swelling, or even a proper ice pack.
Leaping left hook. Ah oui, des bouts. Yeah, you sure did. We're in well. Assurance plus. Ah oui.
In a desperate and amateurish move, Aaron Snowell filled a latex glove with ice water and pressed it against Tyson's face between the 5th and 6th rounds. It was useless. Douglas, sensing the champion's narrowing field of vision, increased his volume, outlanding Tyson 2-1. The fight was no longer a formality, it was a systematic breakdown of a heavyweight king. As the 8th round neared its conclusion, the technical collapse of Mike Tyson was momentarily halted by the sheer force of his natural power. With less than 10 seconds remaining, Tyson found a rare opening in Douglas's high guard. He dipped low, avoiding a lazy jab, and unleashed a signature right uppercut that caught Douglas flush on the chin. The impact lifted Douglas off his feet, sending him crashing to the canvas for the first time in the fight. The Tokyo Dome, which had been eerily quiet as they watched the champion struggle, erupted.
To the body, he tries the uppercut again and misses. Douglas comes back with a left and a right. 3 solid shots right on.
Douglas sat on the mat, his expression one of dazed realization rather than total unconsciousness. He slammed his fist against the canvas in frustration, a physical manifestation of the mental clarity he still possessed, despite the concussive blow. The moments following the knockdown became the most controversial sequence in heavyweight history. Referee Octavio Meyran began his count, but he failed to coordinate with the knockdown timekeeper at ringside. By the time Meyran reached the count of 4, Douglas had already been on the floor for nearly 7 seconds. When the referee finally reached 9, Douglas stood up, his legs appearing steady. However, a post-fight analysis of the broadcast clock revealed that Douglas was actually on the canvas for more than 12 seconds. Had the count been synchronized correctly, the fight would have likely ended there. Instead, the bell rang immediately after Douglas rose, granting the challenger 60 vital seconds to clear his head and recover from the most significant damage he had sustained in the match. Don King, sensing his billion-dollar asset was slipping away, began frantic gesticulations from ringside, but the momentum had irrevocably shifted. Entering the 9th round, Tyson expected a diminished version of Douglas, a man ready to fold. Instead, he met a rejuvenated technician. Douglas didn't just survive the round, he dominated it. He utilized a stinging double jab that repeatedly snapped Tyson's head back, preventing the champion from closing the distance for another hook. Tyson's left eye was now completely closed, a purple mass of traumatized tissue that rendered him blind to any punches coming from Douglas's right side. Douglas finished the round by pinning Tyson against the ropes and unleashing a 4-punch flurry that left Tyson staggering toward his corner, his legs turning to jelly for the first time in his professional life.
Very good example, some of these body shots. I wonder if there's more than 10 or 15.
The 10th round began at 1:20 p.m. local Tokyo time, but for Tyson, the lights were already fading. He moved with a heavy, flat-footed gait, his oxygen intake compromised by the mounting facial swelling. Douglas, sensing the finish, stayed disciplined. He didn't rush in for a reckless knockout. He maintained the 5-inch reach advantage that had been Tyson's undoing all night. Douglas landed a lead right hand that jarred Tyson, followed by a series of left hooks that forced the champion to reset. Tyson's head was now a static target, his once celebrated peekaboo defense having been replaced by a desperate high-handed guard that covered his face but left his midsection and chin vulnerable to the impending uppercut. The end arrived with a clinical sequence that defied every oddsmaker in Las Vegas. Douglas initiated the finishing combination with a devastating right uppercut that snapped Tyson's head toward the rafters. The force of the blow dislodged Tyson's mouthpiece, which flew into the air. Before Tyson could even register the impact, Douglas followed up with a rapid-fire left-right-left hook combination.
Mills lane and stop that nonsense because they were starting to butt heads.
The final left hook caught Tyson on the temple, short-circuiting his equilibrium. The undisputed heavyweight champion of the world collapsed in a heap, his body folding in a way the boxing world had never seen. For the first time in 38 fights, Mike Tyson was looking up at the lights, not from a slip, but from a calculated, systematic demolition.
Scoring. Counts for no more.
On the canvas, a disoriented Tyson fumbled blindly for his mouthpiece. He found it, but in his concussed state, he attempted to shove it back into his mouth upside down with the protective flange hanging out of his lips. This wasn't the baddest man on the planet. This was a vulnerable athlete whose invincibility had been stripped away in real time. Referee Octavio Mayrin reached the count of 10 while Tyson was still on his knees, unsuccessfully trying to stabilize himself. At 1:22 of the 10th round, the impossible had occurred. James "Buster" Douglas, the 42-1 underdog, was the new undisputed heavyweight champion. The atmosphere inside the Tokyo Dome was not one of celebration, but of profound, stunned silence. The Japanese audience, known for their respectful observation, seemed unable to process the result. In the ring, Douglas collapsed into the arms of his trainers, sobbing, a release of the immense pressure he had carried since his mother's death 3 weeks prior. Meanwhile, Tyson's corner finally managed to get him to a stool, where he sat with a look of vacant confusion. Don King immediately began a heated protest with the WBA and WBC officials at ringside, citing the long count from the 8th round in an attempt to have the result overturned. It was a desperate move to save a promotional empire that had just been leveled by a single jab from Columbus, Ohio.
Right to the left to the face and lands to it. Now he's working on the right.
When Ali promoters, King felt personally betrayed.
In the post-fight press conference, the physical toll on Tyson was undeniable. His face was a map of the 130 punches Douglas had landed over 10 rounds. When asked what went wrong, Tyson offered no excuses, simply stating, "I just got caught." But the reality was more complex. He had been out-jabbed, outworked, and outthought. Douglas had landed 51% of his total punches. a staggering statistic against a fighter who previously averaged a defensive evasion rate of over 70%. The loss didn't just take Tyson's belts, it shattered the psychological aura that had won half his fights before the opening bell.
Scored his knockdown in the first round. That by itself wouldn't win the round for both rounds. Second round was overwhelmingly.
The Iron Mike era hadn't just paused, the blueprint for defeating him had been published globally, and the heavyweight division would never be the same. Within hours of the final bell, the political machinery of boxing attempted to do what Tyson's fists could not: invalidate the result. Don King convened an emergency meeting with WBC President Jose Sulaiman and WBA head Gilberto Mendoza at the new Otani Hotel. King's weapon was a stopwatch, claiming that when Tyson floored Douglas in the 8th round, the referee's long count allowed Douglas nearly 14 seconds to recover. Both the WBC and WBA initially suspended the recognition of Douglas as champion, citing a technical error. However, the IBF, led by Marian Muhammad, refused to entertain the protest, declaring Douglas the winner the moment the referee reached 10 in the 10th. The boxing world was in a state of civil war, with the undisputed title physically held by Douglas, but legally contested in smoke-filled boardrooms across Tokyo. The controversy centered on referee Octavio Meyran, who admitted he followed the knockdown timekeeper rather than his own internal count. But public and media backlash was swift and overwhelming. Fans and columnists argued that if the 8th round was a long count for Douglas, Tyson's own count in the 10th was equally generous. Under immense pressure and the threat of a massive boycott from the Nevada State Athletic Commission, the WBC and WBA were forced to retreat. 4 days after the fight, they officially recognized James "Buster" Douglas as the undisputed heavyweight champion. The 42-1 miracle was now codified in the history books. If you want to see more deep dives into the biggest upsets in combat sports history, hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest releases. While the legal battles subsided, the autopsy of Tyson's camp revealed a catastrophic lack of preparation. It was discovered that Tyson's corner, led by Aaron Snowell and Jay Bright, had arrived at the Tokyo Dome without an N-swell, the standard metal tool used to reduce facial swelling. When Tyson's left eye began to shut in the middle rounds, his team was forced to fill a latex glove with ice water and press it against his face, a move that was as amateurish as it was ineffective. This lack of professional oversight was the direct result of Tyson firing his longtime trainer, Kevin Rooney, and the dissolution of the tight-knit team built by Cus D'Amato. The man who had once been a disciplined fighting machine was now a victim of his own unchecked entourage. For Buster Douglas, the victory was the pinnacle of a career often criticized for lack of heart. He returned to Columbus, Ohio, not as a journeyman, but as a hero who had fulfilled his mother's dying prophecy. He had earned a $1.3 million purse for the Tyson fight, but his new status secured him a $24.09 million deal to defend his titles against Evander Holyfield later that year. The Tokyo Dome fight didn't just change the champion, it fundamentally altered the financial trajectory of the heavyweight division. Douglas had proven that the Iron Mike mystique was a fragile construct, and in doing so, he opened the door for a new era of contenders who no longer feared the walk to the ring. For more stories on the legendary figures of the ring, make sure to join our community by subscribing. Mike Tyson left Tokyo a different man than the one who arrived. The loss ended his 37-fight winning streak and stripped away the cloak of invincibility that had been his greatest weapon. He would go on to win his next 4 fights, including a punishing victory over Donovan "Razor" Ruddock in 1991, but the aura of the baddest man on the planet was permanently altered. The blueprint was now public. Use a stiff jab, stay off the ropes, and refuse to be intimidated by the glare. On February 11, 1990, the world didn't just see a boxing match, it witnessed the collapse of a sporting monopoly. James "Buster" Douglas had done the impossible, ensuring that the name Mike Tyson would forever be linked to the greatest upset in the history of the sweet science.